Hello, everyone. My guest today is Lloyd Armbrust. He's the founder of Armbrust American, a U.S. manufacturer of surgical masks and PPE, launched in May 2020, making over $10 million annually. In 2008, he founded Own Local, a Y Combinator-backed startup responsible for generating $300 million in revenue for more than 3,000 local publications over the last decade. He lives in Austin, Texas, with his wife and 5 kids. Lloyd, you ready to take us to the top?
Let's do this.
All right, we're focused this time on everything surgical mask related, but you have also built a great company with Own Local, and you guys should go check out that first interview with him from, Lloyd, it's got to be a couple of years ago at this point.
Yeah, I think it's about 2 years.
2 years, yeah. Okay, talk to me about PPE, because a good friend of mine, Bill, said, Nathan, you've got to see, Lloyd's done something incredible. It's like nothing to 10 million run rate very fast. When did you print or make your first mask, and what got you excited about doing this?
I think we first started doing it I think we had our first machine in April, and I think we shipped our first box of masks around May 20th.
May 20th.
And for me, it was, I was kind of, I actually grew up with my dad was in manufacturing. And so I kind of grew up, going to the plants every, couple of weeks, seeing my dad, and, you kind of idolize your parents. And, I've always kind of wanted to get into manufacturing, but by the time I was, of age, there were no manufacturing jobs left in my hometown. In fact, just to put it in perspective, my hometown when my dad was the same age was about 200,000 people. And when I left Duluth, Minnesota, it was about 60,000 people. And so that shows you just like how much from manufacturing and production it shrank. Mm-hmm. And so, I was looking to get back into it at some point in my career. I kind of got, sidelined doing a tech startup like we do, grew that business to about $11 million in revenue. It was a great business. But it was right when the pandemic struck, I was like, man, the problem here is that we rely too much on one region of the world to produce all of our strategic stuff. And I'm like, when is someone going to come up with the notion that we just need to make this here? But sure enough, just solution after solution was like, how do we get this from China more efficiently? And I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was I remember Sam Altman put out a call to buy 1 billion masks from China at 38 cents a piece, because it was really hard to get masks. And, it was a great effort, to be honest, at the time. But I was like, man, this is just so wrongheaded. Like, why are we going to spend $350 million on buying 1 billion masks when I kind of put together a model, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that for $5 million in investment, I could build the capability of making 1 billion masks, and then we would have that forever. And when I did the math, I was like, man, even if you just built that temporarily and then shut that facility down and just kind of mothballed it until you needed it again, that would be worthwhile. And so that's kind of the process we're in right now.
So did you raise $5 million back in April?
Yeah, we did. In fact, it was, I would say, the fastest that I've ever raised money before. It was literally a weekend. In fact, I didn't originally plan on raising money for this. I was like, I'll buy one assembly line just for myself and see what happens. And then one of my entrepreneur friends said, hey, I was going through the math of it, and he was like, you really need to scale this. Like, the US needs more than just this one line. And so I put together a really bad deck, like probably the worst deck I've ever put together. And I pitched all the investors. That actually I just bought out my investors from my previous company. And so I think it was good timing on that front. And I said, hey, guys, do you want to get in on this? And yeah, we raised about $5 million in a weekend.
And this is not like Own Local, where it's a software play with $1 billion potential upside sort of market value sort of deal. What return are you pitching in? Was it like a fixed interest rate or something?
It's a great question. We actually kind of invented a new thing where I didn't. So Own Local, in the way that traditional VC works, as you well know, is that you're kind of always pretending you're going to be $1 billion company. You have to. The problem is not every company is meant to be $1 billion company. So look at Own Local. Like, we created a great business, very profitable, cash flow heavy. But it just, at some point, it didn't make sense for it to be $1 billion company. So my investors are kind of hanging around going like, hey, you raised all this money. What's the plan? Because they got to exit, right? An investor typically doesn't want to be in a deal for more than 7 to 10 years. And so, they were looking for their exit, rightfully so. So this time I was like, I'm not going to make that same mistake where the incentives are a little bit perverse. And I'm going to really align the incentives with the investors. So what I did was I created a royalty-based model where it's structured as a note that is paid back as the machine makes money. And then once the investor hits their 1x of payment back, then it flips into a royalty agreement where they make money for the life of the machine.
Interesting. Okay, got it. And so what's that royalty? You're talking like 10% or something more aggressive?
It is more aggressive. So the way that it works is it's 65% at first until the investor get paid back. The idea here was like, hey, let me limit your downside risk. Okay. This is a pandemic. We know that the opportunity to get paid back is right now. So let's put that on the front end, right? So we did that. And then once you hit that 1x, then I think it drops to 20% until they hit 2x, and then it's 15, 10, 5.
Yeah.
So it's a burn down situation. And actually we are about to close our WeFunder round next week because we offered the same thing to our customers. So we after we'd grown, we had some incredible growth last year. We decided, hey, let's offer the same deal to our customer base. And we've got about 2,000 customer investors who are using the money to buy other machines. We bought an N95 machine. We were buying machines to make the head coverings that folks wear, the boot coverings. We're really getting into like, okay, how can we serve PPE in the United States going forward?
Mm-hmm. So sum up 2020 for me. How much total revenue did you do top line?
It was just over $10 million in about 6 months of time.
Interesting. And quantify that for me. Like how many N95 masks is that?
So we didn't sell any N95 last year. The N95 is a recent development. We just did surgical. I honestly had assumed that someone would figure out N95 at scale by now, and no one has figured it out. So we decided let's go ahead and start making those too. But yeah, the surgical, it's pretty much all in surgical masks.
So what that was your best seller last year was these surgical masks?
One SKU.
Wow. You only sold one SKU all last year?
We did do different colors, but aside from that, yeah.
That's like a die plate, right? You don't have to change metal arms and things, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So for anyone listening that's getting inspired to like bring more of this back to the US, manufacturing back to the US, they go, well, wait, how did Lloyd find like an assembly line to buy? I didn't know you could do that. It sounds like you did something in Pflugerville. I mean, how did you find it? What it cost? And what does it mean to buy an assembly line?
So everything we did was just off-the-shelf robotics that already exists. A lot of the parts, I went to the folks that were making this stuff for 10, 20 years in China. And none of this before the pandemic was fully automated. So in China, labor is much cheaper. So a lot of it, they're dependent on a lot of that labor to move to different parts of the machine. So we said, okay, well, here are the like 4 or 5 different steps that it takes to make a surgical mask. We're going to put it together and use a robot to connect it all together. And so it's kind of like the machine we have now is kind of a version of something that started in China with robotics from Japan. And probably about 30% of the machine today is made in the US.
Okay, got it. So you didn't just go to Pflugerville and buy something and change like little things. You basically bought like warehouse floor space and then had to build the assembly line.
Yeah, we actually we bought a warehouse and then we turned it into a clean room space.
A what space?
Clean room. So we decided that from the very beginning that we wanted to produce all of our stuff in a clean environment, which isn't required, but I felt like it was really important. I mean, you're putting this stuff on your face, right? It might as well be made in a clean room. And so we spent probably about $250,000 turning some existing space that was very nice space, Class A warehouse, into a clean room space, which just means that it has like an air shower system that scrubs the air. It has a HEPA filtration, and then we do like epoxy floors and epoxy walls.
Okay, so with 10 million total sales then and paying 65% profit share back out until paid back, like how much profit did you do on the 10 million?
That is a good question. I don't think I have an exact answer for that, actually.
Okay.
I know that the first cohort of investors are almost paid back.
Got it. That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, so they're about to move from the 65% down to hopefully the 20%.
Yeah, and actually, I had hoped that it would go a little bit faster, but the the machines at first were producing way, way below what we at first anticipated they would. And so it really took a lot of
Why did that
training.
happen?
I mean, mostly it's training. Like, we had to go from, 4 people to 50, overnight. And you have a lot of people that don't really know what they're doing. So it's a lot of, standard operating procedures. You really take for granted coming from software when you're like, oh, I've more AWS instances. Like, it's not that simple when you're trying to scale production. That said, it's also a strategic advantage in a way, because anybody else that comes, behind us that wants to do exactly what we've done, like, they're going to have to go through those same growing pains. They're going to have to do those same things. I would say, you mentioned before, like, if anybody's inspired about this, like, what should they do? I think whether it's, bringing manufacturing back to the United States, which is what we're trying to be a part of, or if it's, building a software platform, I think you need to pick something that you are passionate about, that you care about. And I think you need to go after that thing. I've had friends who say, like, hey, I have a friend who's like, ammunition's really expensive. I want to make ammunition here in the United States because I shoot a lot. I'm like, we're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, great, like, do that. How much does a machine cost? Like, look these things up. And I think, like, he's really passionate about ways that he could make the buying experience better, because the thing the opportunity here that's insane is that manufacturers in the United States do not sell directly to consumers. It's not a thing that they do, right? And if you do that, your margins are so crazy, because manufacturing typically is used to, like, you have all these middlemen taking bites along the way. So this is really, like, if you want to, I really think that, ironically, manufacturing is the last area that technology is going to eat alive. And what I mean by that is what the internet does, like this thing that you're doing here with podcasting. Like, think about how hard this would have been. You would have had to have your own radio show. You would have your own team. You had to have like 50,000 watts to get in front of people. Now, in your living room, you can sit here, you can cut this thing together, and you can reach your own audience of millions of people that you were able to build. This wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago, but technology cut out the middleman, right? And that's exactly what has not happened to manufacturing. They are still going through all these people, retailers, group buying organizations, they're used to people taking all these bites of the apple, and still they're making a bunch of money. And so for us, we're going direct to consumers, direct to governments, direct to, like, we're the only we have a 15-person sales team. We're the only surgical mask manufacturer that has a 15-person sales team. Like, that's insane. And it's because we're cutting out the middleman that allows that to happen. So I think that whether it's ammunition or whether it's, some sort of productivity device that you put on your desk, if you want to make something physical, if you can cut out the middleman, there is plenty of opportunity to bring that manufacturing here to the US.
Lloyd, talk economics to me on 10 million. What was the volume? How many USA made surgical masks did you make last year?
That is a good question, and I don't have an answer.
What's a range? I mean, obviously it's got to be in the millions, right?
Yeah, in the hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you is the peak we got to was about 1 million masks per day when we were running 3 shifts all the time. We've since cut back because we have enough backstock. And honestly, like, the CDC has really been confusing people around what type of protection they should wear. And so they've really kind of gotten this idea out there that you should wear cloth masks. And we're the only country in the world that's saying, hey, you should wear cloth masks, because cloth only it has an efficacy of about 30% filtration. Whereas a surgical mask like ours has a 98% filtration. So it's really funny, because all these people walking around Austin, Texas, like, I never see surgical masks. And if you look, like, our death count in, like, Texas, for example, I think from COVID is about 25,000 people so far. Compare that to South Korea. They all wear surgical masks in South Korea. In South Korea, they have twice the population and only 400 COVID deaths. And I really think the difference is just protection. Like, we just have like crappy protection here in the United States.
So economics wise, on that sort of scale, what were you able to drive your per unit cost down to?
So our costs are down to about 5 cents a unit.
Okay, got it. And what do you sell them for? Like, you have a pack of 400 here listed. What do you sell them for?
I mean, it really, so what we learned early on, because I've never done consumer before, was that people just, thanks Amazon, they expect you to include
Shipping.
free shipping, and that's a big cost of the item. That takes a big chunk of our Apple. And then like we have, all of these, we do have like, some resellers and things like that take another 10% off of it. And so it really depends on the volume that people are buying, because like if I'm going to sell a pallet, it's a lot easier to sell a pallet of masks. And so we can do that just a lot more efficiently, because also the labor of putting that in a box is pretty expensive, because we're pretty till that point. And so if I could put it in a pallet, it's way, way cheaper. If I need to put it in a box and send it to one person, that is like twice the cost of actually producing the thing.
Yeah, I mean that reflects in your per unit cost, right? If someone just buys your smallest pack of 50 at $29.90, I think it's about 58 cents a mask versus your cost of 5 cents. But part of that is, I imagine, shipping, right?
Yeah, shipping is probably another 5 cents, and I think putting it in a box to get to them is probably 10 cents.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, what happens when the pandemic goes away? Can you repurpose what you've built? I mean, I'm sure you're thinking about this to produce something else.
Definitely. So one of the things we did differently than a lot of the other folks who've gotten into this business is we decided early on we wanted to be vertically integrated. And what that means is that we take the raw materials, which is pellets of polypropylene, and we turn that into the fabric that makes the masks. And then we use that fabric and turn that fabric into the masks. Now, most people are just buying that fabric from China and then turning it into masks. So for us, we actually save a lot of money because we're making the fabric, but then that allows us to do so much more. So for example, like all these things are like Tyvek wrapping on a new home when you're building a house is made out of polypropylene.
Yeah. So you can change things and pump out all this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
The base unit is polypropylene, and you built everything around the base unit, not the surgical mask.
Exactly. But the other thing too, that I think there will be a much bigger market for, I also think, look, stockpiling, government stockpiling deals with governments and institutions. We have some hospital groups who have come to us and said, look, 30% of our PPE needs to be purchased in the United States next year, which was not a thing ever before. So they're looking at that strategically. Governments are saying like, hey, we want to buy it here. They're looking at it strategically. And also like the general population, like if you look at SARS in 2002, people are wearing surgical masks on planes, mostly in Asia, because of the SARS outbreak in 2002. So I think you're going to have a lot of people who continue to wear masks.
Just new habits.
Just new habits, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up. What do you think you'll do sales in 2021?
Oh wow, that's a tough one. I mean, I hope to 4x it at least.
Yeah, well, it would be very cool. What a story. Come back on in 6 months, man. Give us an update.
All right, thanks, man.
Lloyd, where can they check you out? By the way, wrap up. Where can they check you out?
You can actually, if you want to see into the factory and what we're doing, you should go to my YouTube channel. I think it's just Lloyd Armbrust.
All right, guys. We'll link that up in the show notes. Lloyd, thanks for taking us to the top.
All right, thanks.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers, they try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com patreon.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.